This is episode 84 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 84 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Russell Westcott on the show. And for those of you who don't know Russell, he is an extremely experienced and well-established real estate investor that primarily operates out of Edmonton, Alberta. He's the first guest I've had on out of Edmonton, and it was a great episode because while things have been great for a really long time here in Ontario and we've seen boom, 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 Alberta and Edmonton specifically saw their boom back in the early 2000s, and it's been a fairly stagnant market ever since. On this episode, Russell specifically talks about how he's held on to certain properties that were actually below water, certain properties that have still not regained the value that they lost back in 2008, and how he's persevered, still continued to grow his portfolio, and now has over 100 properties. This is truly an episode about overcoming adversity and taking control of your own results. It's not so much what the market does, it's how we respond to it. And that's one of the big things I took away from what Russell shared. He truly is a very wise person. He's a published author of 2 different books. One of those books is called Real Estate Joint Ventures, The Canadian Investor's Guide to Raising Money and Getting Deals Done. The other book is 91 Tips for Canadian Real Estate Investors. Both of these books were co-authored by Don Campbell, who is also another very big name in real estate investing. So this is definitely an episode you are going to want to pay close attention to. Russell's mindset is in the right place for growth, and it's something that we can all learn from. So it was a really fun episode. The audio turned out really great because Russell is also a podcast host and he sent over his own audio file. So it's back to the quality of the days where we did in-person interviews, and I am going to be doing a handful of those type of interviews coming up as well. As always, I ask that if you're enjoying yourself and you're enjoying this content, that you please do me a favor and share it with somebody you think it could help. If you have not already, make sure that you're subscribed on whatever platform you use. Give it a thumbs up if you can, leave a review if you can, and let me know what you think. I'd greatly appreciate it. Here is episode 84 with Russell Westcott. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Russell Westcott on the show, long overdue episode together. So Russell, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going today? So it is long overdue, and I know we got a lot to catch up and we got a great conversation here, but I just wanted to offer you a little bit of congratulations for putting together this wonderful podcast. You know what? When I got started, I wish there was a resource like what you were doing on a weekly basis to inspire people to take action. So I just wanted to just give you some props and just tell you you're doing a really good job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I know you had tagged me on Facebook. I wasn't aware if you were listening or not, but that's great. I really appreciate the support.
Well, it was funny. This morning I was catching up one of your last interviews with Lynn LeBeau. Yeah. She's one of our inner circle clients, and just great catching up with her. And she's got such a wonderful story, just such a fantastic lady. And you have such amazing guests on your podcast. I hope I can do justice here today.
Well, you're a big name, Russell. I'm sure you will. I've heard your name thrown around so much. I know you do talks. You're speaking at the right club. Unfortunately, I missed that. But I'd love it if you could tell me and our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself.
Oh, it's interesting. The hardest question you ever can get to ask is, so tell me about yourself, right? So I'll try to make a long story mercifully short. I'll do it within the context of real estate here as well. My real estate investing journey started right around, I joke it started around the turn of the century, right around year 2000. And it's interesting to say is not a lot of people have been around this game for, more than 20 years. And my journey started with a birthday, and it started with a birthday with a 0 at the end of it. And it was my 30th birthday in the year 2000. And a self-diagnosed Peter Pan syndrome that I just never, ever wanted to grow up. And I decided, what was I going to do with the rest of my life? At the ripe age of 30, like I'm getting older, right? It's what am I going to do? Took a look around, and a really good person recommended a book to me. And, like most light bulb inception moments. A lot of books are those inception moments. And as you can see over my shoulder here, books are a very big part of my world, of my education. And that was right around the time when Rich Dad, Poor Dad came into my world, and Robert Kiyosaki. And I have a feeling that little purple book has been one of the starting kickstarters for most entrepreneurs out there. So I got inspired into this whole world of entrepreneurship. And first step I did was I reached out to my financial planner, which was a mutual fund salesman. And, we just had wonderful conversations. We played the cash flow game. He just shared with me a little bit a different way of looking at things, which then led into reading Real Estate Riches with Dolph DeRuse of the Rich Dad series. Now, at that time in 2000, I was a basement suite renter with a roommate. I had never bought a property in my life. I actually grew up in small town Saskatchewan, and for the first 15, 16 years of my life, I lived in a mobile home, in a trailer, deals on wheels. And so I had no experience with real estate. I had never even written an offer. I did nothing about that, but something about real estate just excited me. I then went and found a workshop that I went to. That's where I met Don Campbell for the first time. And Don Campbell is just an amazing icon, the OG, if you will, of real estate investing in Canada. I just fell in love with the concept of real estate. I became a member of the Real Estate Investment Network. I actually became their vice president of the Real Estate Investment Network. I was buying properties, every year. I would keep adding properties to my portfolio. There was a time for about 5 years I added a property a month for more than 5 years. I've transacted over 100 places. And right up to this day, I'm still active in my real estate portfolio. I'm active in my business, and I'm still acquiring properties that I will add about 5 or 6 places a year to my portfolio. A couple $1,000,000 every year I'll add to my portfolio, just slowly under the radar. And I'm actually negotiating right now on a pocket of 6 brand new construction suited homes that we're going to build, pre-spec, pre-build. And everything I teach is everything I do. So hopefully that was quick enough.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Story. It's hard to encapsulate 20 years into a real short period of time.
Well, yeah, from what I gathered beforehand, you were very well experienced, and as you've summarized, that's very much the case. So, just looking at your typical transaction, you said you're kind of under the radar, and how do you mean it's under the radar? What type of places are you buying typically now, and what are you doing to them? Well,
when I say under the radar, I mean, let me just reframe that. And within the context, I mean, is I probably should take my own coaching here a little bit, is I actually don't publicly share a lot of the real estate transactions I do online. I'm actually, part of my business is actually helping other people. And I think I will do more of a service by helping others accomplish their goals than by just telling people what I do. Because at the end of the day, most people sit there and watch and go, oh, it's great. They're buying a place and bought another place and 200 places over here. That's wonderful. But how can you help me? So I'm more interested in sharing other people's stories. I'm more interested in sharing solutions to this, not just putting out what I do on the social media airways. I would much rather share a solution to a challenge that somebody's have as opposed to just broadcast my story. Okay, so to succinctly answer that question you asked is, in target market I have is Edmonton, Alberta. It's when I started investing, where I bought my first place back in 2002, and I've been invested there ever since. And lately, I've pivoted my investment opportunities into new construction homes, into suited properties, side-by-side duplexes, 4plexes, 6plexes, 8plexes, all brand new construction.
Still in Edmonton? Like still to this day, everything?
Everything's in Edmonton or northern Alberta, different places. I've toyed a few investment opportunities in interior BC and Vernon, did a couple projects in the lower mainland of BC, but everything's been either in Alberta or British Columbia.
Okay. Do you know Corey and Tiffany Young?
Yep, know them very well.
Okay, I've heard them speak a bunch of times. I was always hoping to get somebody on the podcast that was investing in Edmonton, so that's great. I'm going to have tons of questions for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Edmonton, and this is just my own personal opinion, is going to be, in a few years from now, people will be wishing that they had invested in Edmonton right now. And that's my personal opinion.
So, and tell me why.
Well, I think it's okay. There's a lot to unpack there, but number one is the peak house price in Edmonton was about 12 years ago, where that was the peak house price. So the housing market in Edmonton has been either flat or actually declined since probably 2007, 2008. Okay. So a market cannot keep going up in value forever, and a market can't keep going flat forever. I firmly believe that the numbers are starting to align for the rent ratios, the price points, the inventory positions, the pipelines that have been announced that are starting to be built, the employment numbers. Everybody has their opinion about energy and everybody has their opinion about oil and gas. But the bottom line is we still need energy to operate our cars and operate our houses and heat our properties and all this kind of stuff. And we need to have a good, safe, reliable energy source. And the best place in that in Canada is in Alberta. Mm-hmm. And for the last decade, the energy sector and in Alberta has been, I would say they've been beat down enough and they've pivoted enough that they are now changing and evolving. And they're not just oil and gas, they're now energy providers in technology, plus also the oil and gas. So there is a lot going on. And, Andrew, I just think the numbers make sense there too.
Yeah, in that's something we're definitely going to dig into. But I mean, my understanding just from talking to Corey and Tiffany is that you go up and you go down. Like rental rates are unlike other markets that I've really been familiar with, in that I've heard that Edmonton, you could have a swing over a couple of years of $400 higher or lower, depending on how oil and gas is doing at the time or some other market factors. Has that been your experience, or is that just an isolated story I heard?
No, it's 100%. There was times in the heyday that I was getting probably $400 to $600 more in rent per unit. Okay. Now, interesting to note, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. In Alberta, they don't have rent controls. Okay. So the market fluctuates based upon the market. So some people go, oh, you're so lucky you don't have rent controls. Well, I don't know in a rent control marketplace that has gone down that I'm aware of. And typically in rent controlled marketplaces, the rents are higher than non-rent control marketplaces, where free market economy rules the day. But the one thing in Alberta is they definitely have the most friendliest landlord and tenant laws for the landlord. And I'll just give you an example. At the end of a term lease, Andrew, in Alberta, it's the landlord's choice if you want to renew or not.
Oh,
it's not the tenant's choice. Right out. Let's put it this way, you wouldn't want to do business that way and give them no notice, but it is the landlord's choice at the end of the term if they want to renew or not. The tenant doesn't have a choice.
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings on that because, the rent strike thing that's going on right now, and people are basically, villainizing landlords. Some people, of course, not all. There is a certain sense of entitlement, it seems, among certain groups of tenants. So that what you're describing more just sounds like a balance of power, because if they're good tenants, why would you not want to keep them?
Well, that's business friendly, and I would not. Here's the thing: at the end of a term, if they're a good tenant, I 100% would want to put them on another lease, another term lease. And if they're a bad tenant, then I don't want to renew, right? It's just that I just have more choice. I don't have to automatically roll them over into month to month.
So I'm sure you've had, you're well experienced. I'm sure you've had a couple of instances where you had people you didn't want to renew. Is that just like call the sheriff and get them out of there if you need to, or they usually just leave?
Well, the good news is you do have, that's one of the business policies we have, is every tenant is on a fixed term lease. Even if let's say their term ends and they say, well, we only want to rent one more month, no problem. We'll just, what we'll do is we'll sign them up on a 1 month lease. And then if they want to renew, we'll just renew 1 month at a time. But we have a fixed term lease on every tenancy we have. Right. So at a worst case scenario is you will only be as far out as the term of your lease is that you can potentially evict a tenant.
Okay. So that actually, I mean, from a landlord standpoint, it sounds pretty good. Now, the concern I have, and I'm sure you've felt it, Through all of this, have you seen your rents go down in any way, or is it more just been some of your purchase or some of your values? Have they come down through the whole lockdown?
Well, here's the thing. Now, there's a lot of a conversation we could unpack there, all on its own. Pleasantly surprised on what has actually happened since the lockdown, and I think most people are probably in the same boat. Now, here's my quick take on this. When everything started happening and unraveling, and announced of this pandemic word and all this kind of stuff, I started rounding up the wagons and defense first before offense. And at that time, I had to take my business plan I had and threw it out the window, and I started over. And I started over by building 3 business plans. I built a good plan, a bad plan, and an ugly plan. And I've been executing against all 3 of those plans ever since. Now, some people go, well, which one's it going to be, Russ? I can't answer that. I honestly, if anybody asks me what's going to happen in the marketplace, I don't know. And if anybody knows what's going to happen, I think they're speculating at best. So Exactly. It's either going to be good, it's going to be bad, or it's going to be downright ugly. And I'm doing something on all 3 of those. For example, if a market turns ugly, I'm already in the background building websites to attract distressed sellers. I'm refreshed on all my buying properties, taking over properties with agreements for sales and vendor takebacks and seller financing strategies. I've got all those things there, and I'm actually starting to, I'll have an implementation plan to attract distressed sellers if it turns downright ugly. If the market is going to be bad, which I term a market bad, would be just a slow nothing for years and years and years. And what I'm doing is I'm selling off some of my old underperforming properties or renovating back up, and I'm turning them into new construction properties, lower maintenance, better tenant profile, easier to maintain, under warranty, and I'm changing that portfolio. If it's going to be a good market, which if I was to be totally honest, I think the market has actually been extremely strong, stronger than I would have ever thought. But who knows what the future will take. If it's going to be a good market, it's just the same plan I had in January of 2020 and just start executing against that. So I could go on and on about those right there, but I just wanted to just provide value for your audience that there are 3 outcomes and I'm taking action on all 3.
And I think that there's something people can take from that in any market, no matter where you are, is that you got to be watching what's going on, and you should have a plan A, B, and C, which is more or less what you've just described. Hey, if things stay good, we keep going, but we have a plan B, we have a plan C.
And I've been around the block long enough to know that the market isn't going to determine whether I succeed or not. I'm in full control of how I'm going to react and the tactic that I use in the market. I'm going to do whatever the market provides me is what I'm going to do. Okay. The market doesn't dictate to me if I'm going to succeed or not. Now, there are markets that are easier than others, and there are markets that might have less challenging times or less struggle. But at the end of the day, it's your resourcefulness, not your resources, and it's not the market that makes the difference.
Okay, and I absolutely agree, because where there's a will, there's a way. That expression obviously comes from something, and clearly you have the will to make it work. Just in terms of factually, because I have not been following it, has there been an overall decrease in average sale price in Edmonton?
No, that's actually gone up.
It's gone up. Wow.
Yeah.
Because I know, okay, so just, this is anecdotal.
When I say gone up, like we're talking marginally. Very marginally.
So anecdotally, I know many people that were like friends of mine in high school that moved out to Alberta that have now left in recent history, which I think what you're saying is it makes it an opportunity. I would have just thought you would have seen potentially some decrease in value. Have you seen rents affected at all by this?
I have not on my portfolio. Yeah. As a matter of fact, some of the clients and some of my coaching clients have seen rent increases, very marginal rent increases, right. But it's nothing like what you guys are seeing out in Ontario. Mm-hmm. And, I have my opinion a little bit about what's going on in Ontario too, of being somebody who's been through, my personal opinion, an unsustainable boom. Like we had years where we were 35% growth and 53% growth year over year, and that isn't sustainable.
Yeah. So when did that happen for you? Like I think you said 2007, and I remember that because my brother owned in Edmonton at that time, and had these awesome values, and then it went down, and he was obviously a little disappointed.
Yeah, I actually doubled my portfolio in 2007 and 2008 at the absolute worst possible time to add all those properties to my portfolio. And in some cases, those properties 12, 13 years later are not what I paid for them 12, 13 years later.
Are they cash flowing?
Yes, that's the only reason I could hang on to them. Well, hang on. Some of them, they're challenging. They're challenges because when a tenant moves out and maybe you have a $3,500, $3,600 repair bill, carpet and paints and all that kind of stuff. It's cash flow gets really, really tight on those properties.
Yeah, I can imagine it would. And then, of course, you've got the volatility there because there is a little bit more volatility in Edmonton. It could go up, could go down. I'm guessing that, yeah, you've got a few that you wouldn't necessarily have made that choice if you had the foresight to know what was going to happen. But of course, you've balanced it out with probably a lot of good cash flowing properties since.
Yes. And there's a lot of bad ones in there too. And some of them I can't sell for and to get what I put in. And some of them mortgage balances are higher. So they're underwater. Okay. Some of them are, absolutely. And a lot of investors at that time during the heyday refinanced their portfolios, sucked all that equity out, and they can't sell it for mortgage balance today. Right. And not to tell too many horror stories here, but I did have more hair when I got started. I had a portfolio of 9 properties that I bought, anywhere between $88,000 and $122,000 a door, townhomes. And people are going, "Oh, you're so lucky, Russ, that you paid those prices." Okay. So I bought them, held them. So that would have been 2003, 4, and 5. Held them. We got hit with a $38,000 to $42,000 special assessment across them. And I had 9 of them. Okay, you can put that in your calculator. Okay.
Special assessment from condo?
Correct.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Did their insurance policy lapse and something bad happened?
It happened. It's I can get into all the stories of how it happened and why it happened, but it happened. And so what happens when you have those kind of special assessments is that people will probably panic sell. People will sell them. Some people walk away. Some people won't pay them. Some people go into foreclosure. So it keeps the value down. So I held some of those properties, bought them in 2002, 3, and 4, sold them in 2015, 16, and 17 for almost the same value I bought them for. And on top of that, I had to take a huge loss because I had to pay for that assessment out of it. So
$360,000 assessment across, roughly, if it's $40,000 on average per unit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's ugly. Is there something people who are condo buyers can avoid or look out for to avoid having that happen to them?
Here's the thing: is I thought I did all the homework. I had the condo reserve fund studies. I did all that diligence that I thought was proper at that time, and it just so happened it happened. I know I probably should have known better, but at the time when I bought them, who knew, right? But as a matter of fact, at the same time, that's one of the probably, a lot of people sit there and go, well, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't, if I was to look back at that, on those places that I bought at 88 to 120 a door, on those ones, they were selling at a peak at 230 to 274 at a peak. If I would have talked to myself back then, if I had a time machine to go back, I would have told myself to sell them at that time.
Yeah.
Right. But, hindsight is 2020 always. And at that time in the marketplace, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to freak anybody out at all of this kind of stuff.
I've already done that telling my story. Don't worry.
Okay. I'm just sharing with you what I've gone through. Now, you do your own research in your own market. All I'm doing is telling you a story of somebody who's been through this. When I start seeing markets where people are teaching you how to win multiple offers and things are going $100,000, hundreds, $200,000, $300,000 over list, and lots of people out there touting about how to win multiple offer bidding wars. And somebody buys a place and they put a little bit of lipstick and paint on it. The week after they list it and they get a multiple offer, another $50,000, and they make $150,000 in a week's time. When I start seeing those kind of things, I've been there. I've been in those marketplaces, guys. Now, don't get me wrong, you do what you need to do, but what you might want to do is you may want to pull some chips off the table. It would be a really good opportunity maybe to sell some properties or reevaluate if you can hang on to those properties if it does slow down. That'd be my best advice.
And that's very, very wise. And I got to say, I think the same way, because I've been in places where I didn't have good plan B, good plan C, and I know how much it hurts, especially to own something that you've got more into it than it's worth. That those are ugly positions to be in. And the things that have happened to me in the horror show of my 20s of getting started in real estate investing taught me to never sacrifice cash flow. And you've always got to have cash flow for exactly what you're describing. You're the perfect example of why I say that, because your market could go down. We've seen a boom for an unprecedented amount of time. And it's got to slow down, at very least slow down, and probably correct at some point. And I personally think Toronto proper is going to feel that first. And maybe that's even coming.
There's a very cute saying out there right now, and I 100% firmly believe in it. It's not timing the market, it's time in the market. I think Scott McGilvery said that. Now, 100% I agree with Scott. It's about time in the market. The longer they're in the market, the better. So that's number one. But those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Like, seriously, you why can't you buy at a good time and have good time in the market at the same time? Mm-hmm. Like, for example, somebody who bought in Alberta in 2005 versus somebody who bought in Alberta in 2007. We're only talking a 2-year spread. Those two people, someone who bought in 2005 versus someone who bought 2007, those two people have completely different decisions and different scenarios and outcomes. And we're only talking a 24-month period. Mm-hmm. Like, one person sitting there going, I can't sell my house because it might be underwater and I can't get back what I paid for it. The person who bought in 2005 saying, you know what, it's not what it was and it peaked, but you know what, I can still sell it. And because I paid a good price for it, I can still get out of it and lower my price and move on. And actually, I made some money on it. Just not as much as I wanted, but I can still move on.
Hey guys, just wanted to pause the episode for a second and let you know that I am actually hiring a new position that is going to be an administrative assistant. So if you're somebody who's interested in working in the real estate industry and learning what it is that I do on a daily basis and are willing to commit to a full-time position here in the Burlington, Ontario area, I ask that you please reach out to me on one of my social platforms, whether it be Instagram or Facebook, at the Andrew Hines, and let me know that you're interested and why you're interested, and I will follow up with you on how to apply for this position. So this is for somebody who's an A-type, very organized, very diligent, able to be a self-starter and follow up on things. You must have good communication skills and tact, and you must be ready to learn. That's the very most critical part. You've got to be ready to learn. This isn't just a start and quit once you get what you want. This isn't a coaching or mentoring position, but this is a position where you will learn a lot. And it is a demanding position, but it is something that I feel it can be very rewarding. And I would really look forward to your application if you think that this is a fit, or if you know somebody that you think this would be a fit for. I would greatly appreciate you making that connection. Thank you very much, and we'll get back to the episode. I don't think a lot of people who haven't been in this long, most people getting started, right? They haven't experienced it on their home, or at least, things have been so good for so many people. Maybe I was fortunate enough that whole thing wouldn't change anything. I think a lot of people say that because they learn from it. And I suppose I say it the same way you do. I'm like, I don't know if I want to say I wouldn't change, because if I could have not gone through some of that pain, it sure would have been nice. But at the end of the day, we can't cry over the spilled milk. We can go, as an early mentor once said, is don't cry over spilled milk, just go milk another cow. Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, think about how much it shaped you as an investor to have gone through that. And then it made you probably so much more careful than anybody who had been told that lesson, right? You could have been told that lesson, but to have gone through it, the way that that's internalized makes you a whole different kind of investor.
Yeah, I'm a better coach because of that. I'm a better mentor. I can advise people a little bit better because I've been through it, right? I'm a resident of the land. I'm not a tourist of that land. Like, I understand and I have an empathy when somebody comes to me and they're having a conversation about this property's upside down and this has lost some money and I may have to sell my house and all this kind of stuff. I have empathy because I've been through that. I know what it's like to sit there and face a $300,000 to $400,000 cash call. And what the heck do I do when I get that notice? And I'll tell you, the first thing I did was I cried. So.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm sure I've had a few moments that I remember just having an absolute mental breakdown when I pretty much got told that the property I had bought in the States was just worth nothing and I was going to have to pay to get rid of it. And that was basically, so not only had I lost my investment, but now I was going to have to pay to get rid of it. And that was kind
I had to bring checks to the closing table to sell a property.
To get rid of it.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, here's what happened was once I cut that, and I'm trying not to make light of anybody if there's ever been cancer in anybody's family, I'm not making light of that, but I had to cut a tumor out of the portfolio. And once that tumor was gone after the, healing and forgiving myself for making a bad decision, it created space for something new to come into the picture. It created a new space for a new business opportunity. It created space for new partners to come in. It created new space for a different way of looking at real estate. And you know what? I'm not embarrassed to say that, after 20 years of this business, I feel like I'm just getting started and I'm just getting going because I look at how much more I have to create, how much more I have to give, and I've just touched the tip of the iceberg after 20 years.
Wow. That's, wasn't expecting that.
No, I've just got started, honest to goodness.
I can definitely relate to what you're saying though, because that moment I told you about when I finally accepted that it was done and I just handled it, got rid of the property, took the loss, I felt free. I'm like, okay, I've finally moved on and now I can actually go do something better. And now I can focus on making up for this and winning rather than trying not to lose.
Now, Andrew, imagine this for a second. Now, I'm not trying to one up the pain of this, but just imagine you made that mistake and you identify part of your identity is teaching others how to be successful in real estate. You're standing on a stage in front of 400 people and you've lost money, right? And you've stepped on some landmines and you've made some bad deals. Okay. I had a very existential coming to moment at that time about what I was teaching and what I was sharing and how authentic I was becoming and coming across. At one time, you're putting out there that you're trying to be the success, and at the same time, you're hurting, and you're struggling, and you have some challenging properties, and you have some, and you're teaching this stuff, right? You're not supposed to make mistakes. You teach this stuff, right? So it was a hard lesson to learn, and the biggest thing was a little bit of the ego. A little bit of, the fear of looking bad. But the step that started everything was I had to forgive myself. And once I forgive myself for making those mistakes, it freed me up to be able to share those with other people. And I've actually been sharing the challenging times more than I have with the good times, because I think we can learn more from the struggle and the challenge than we can from people telling the 700 properties they bought or everything's going well and, unicorns and rainbows and all that kind of stuff. I think we can learn more from the challenge and the struggle.
And I absolutely agree, because when things go right, let's face it. I mean, here in Ontario, it hasn't taken much to win. Like, even very, very unsophisticated people who've made huge mistakes have made a lot of money because the market forgave them. The market made it okay. To have actually lost, and I had a guy on not too long ago, Rob Chopra. Yeah, he told the story. His first flip, I think he said he lost $60,000, but before the dust had even settled, he was into the next one. What he learned from that is tuition. It's tuition towards success. And I think, I don't know, like, do you see it? I mean, I guess they say you can either make the mistakes or you can pay a coach and, kind of pay for them to have made the mistakes. Is that sort of how you see it and what you kind of put out there to your coaching students? Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I will emphasize to my coaching clients very much is I'm more interested in who you become as a person in the process and not the end result as per se. And I'll share a story. So had this young fellow came to me when I first met him. He literally was broken. He had a broken knee. And he was playing ball hockey at the time, broke his knee, and he was on crutches and hobbling, and he came up and he was just broken. And we had this conversation, and he had 11 properties at the time. And so in all rates, a successful real estate investor. Young guy, we started a coaching process. We went through it over a 2-year time frame. And I saw him flourish and I saw him grow. And I saw first of all, his portfolio went from 11 units to just under 50, and it's still growing. He's buying apartment buildings now. But more importantly, who he became in the process. He became a better dad. He became a better business owner, became a better husband. He became somebody who can delegate things to other people. He became a person of a leader of a team. And now he's out giving back, and he created a new podcast in the world of veterinary medicine. And he's helping vets where he used to be a doctor of veterinary medicine. And now he's helping veterinarians transition over their career. So he's giving back in other ways. It's not a lot of my coaching clients come to me about wanting the real estate tactics, but they end up leaving a better person, and they end up leaving, it's a lot of the personal development to become successful in real estate. You become a better person in the process.
Okay, so you're focusing a lot on the actual mindset first, not the strategies.
Interesting to note is I focus 100% on the tactics and the strategies first, because that's what everybody thinks they need. And then we're very clear on the like when I sit down with a new coaching client, we get crystal clear in what the deliverables are. But I also take a deeper look into what does all this mean. Okay, so now you've left your job as a realtor and you want to sail around the world and you want to do that. Now, how do we get that? Now, what is the deeper meaning behind that on how to get there is really that comes after we get crystal clear on what the deliverables of the goals and the tactics, and then we take a deeper dive.
So you're talking about dissecting what they would need to do, how many properties, what level of success they would need to achieve to get to their goal.
I actually get right down to what are you doing today? What are the 5 things you're doing today that will add up to your 4 biggest priorities, which will lead to your top quarterly goals, which will lead up to your 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year targets. And I will have, if somebody's feeling stuck, when my coaching clients are feeling stuck, they have to text me every single day what they're doing that day to get them closer to their priorities, to their goals and that. And then the next day at the same time, they have to text me what they did yesterday and what they're doing today if they're feeling stuck. Because I firmly believe that once we know where we're going, it comes right down to, are you executing on a day-by-day basis? And I actually will walk a lot of my coaching clients through, like, seriously, like, let me look at your calendar. What is on your calendar today that's going to get you closer? And when I look at it, and if I don't see things that are lining up with your priorities to your goals, get rid of it. You got to find a way to get rid of it. Everything you need to do, these 5 things that need to add up to winning the day to your priorities. So we get really tactical. We get really, really detailed in the focus. And I take a very personal involvement with the coaching clients that I work with. And I only work with 5 people at a time, and that's it.
That makes sense. Yeah. There's only so much time in the day, right? To focus your energy.
I can't put it, I would be doing a disservice to the client if I couldn't focus that kind of time and energy. And some of my clients, they have me on their text message and speed dial. And if they need a 911 phone call, we have that call and we will walk through things. I have 2 of my clients right now that are looking to buy 3 apartment buildings. I think there's 21 units between the 3 of them. And I'm on speed dial and we're walking through the negotiations with them right now. So
what's your end game? I mean, I know you obviously seem to get enjoyment out of this. I mean, what keeps you buying real estate? What goals are you working towards?
You know, I love the game of real estate. And first of all, great question. So if you remember the story I told at the beginning about how I got started, it was a 30th birthday. That the one with a 0 at the end. And I sat down and I had one of those moments about what am I going to do? I had another one of those birthdays with a zero at the end of it. This past year in January, I had my 50th birthday. Okay. And I sat down and I had a really hard look at what I've been doing for the last 20 years. And if I was brutally honest with myself at that time. And I believe I played small for the last 20 years. I believe I did not contribute enough. I did not help enough people. I did not inspire enough people to help them move forward. I did not coach enough people. I did not get my message out to a wider audience. And so after I kind of beat myself up a little bit and I said, okay, well, what are you going to do? So I sat down and I re-envisioned what the next 20 years will look like. And I wrote down a new mission. And my new mission is to inspire 1 million real estate investors with the tools and resources to help you buy one more property by the year 2035. And that scared the crap out of me when I wrote that down.
You want to inspire 1 million people to buy one more property by 2035?
With the tools and resources to buy one more property by the year 2035. Now, and there's an operative thing of one more property. Now, do you mind if I do a little exercise with you here, Andrew?
Please do.
Okay, so I have a term called one more property. Tell me about the last place that you bought, Andrew. Rental property, cash flow rental property. Tell me about the last place you bought.
It's a bungalow. Okay, so we'll leave the little wholesale deal out.
What did you pay for it?
I paid $265 for it.
$265. Okay. What is your gross rent on that place?
I just increased it. It's about $36.50.
$36.50. Okay. So if you had that place, let's say in 15 years from now, that place was free and clear. Okay. Tenants paid off. Market didn't appreciate $1 in 15 years, and you had some acceleration strategy. Looks like you probably have some good cash flow there on that property.
Maybe I renovated it.
Yeah.
Sorry, left that part out, but go ahead.
Okay, so let's say 15 years from now, the property did not go up in value, but the tenants paid it off and you had some acceleration strategy and it was free and clear. Okay. Mm-hmm. You just created a $265,000 pension plan fund. Yeah. Okay. $36.50 if you had a 40% operating expense ratio. Times 0.6 is $21.90 times 12. You just created a $27,000 a year income stream.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you have a $265,000 pension that creates $27,000 a year for you when that property is free and clear. Now, to you, if I was able to give you a tool or a resource or an inspiration or a kick in the butt to help you buy one more place, okay? That to you in 15 years is worth $250,000 and $27,000 a year.
Yeah, that's huge. And you know what? I actually say something very similar. So I'll give you mine now. So I say, if you own one property today that you buy with a 30-year mortgage, in 30 years here in Ontario, reasonably you could expect that property will probably be worth $1 million. That one property just made you a millionaire. In 30 years.
But I just take it back and I just say, what if it doesn't have any appreciation?
Right. Yeah. So in Ontario, we're just so freaking used to it. I kind of figure in 30 years, just with inflation, the way it's going, we'll get there. But I mean, again, no one has that crystal ball.
Now, if you actually just factor in a little 3% growth factor into there, the numbers get ridiculous. Right. So my inspiration is to inspire 1 million people with the tools and resources to buy one more place. Right. Now, and it stems from the two biggest regrets people have when it comes to real estate. Regret number one is that they didn't start soon enough. And regret number two is they didn't acquire enough. Okay. Now, unfortunately, I can't go back in time to get you 20 years ago, but I can start today. And what I can do is I can give you a tool or a resource to help you overcome some of the biggest obstacles you will face to buy one more place.
Yeah, and that's obviously incredibly valuable. I mean, just looking here at Ontario, because I'm not sure how familiar you are with Ontario.
Yep. Quite.
Yeah. So obviously the areas that you're talking about with the bidding wars are really around where I live. You know, I'm in the Greater Toronto area. I'm in Burlington. So Hamilton's doing that. You're still getting stuff that's, I wouldn't say they're in bidding wars, but it's been going up aggressively. London, Ontario, which was sort of my playground for many, many years, just went up so much that I had the feelings like you were saying, just yeah, I'm kind of good. I don't really want to get into that game of paying too much for real estate. So I've kind of cooled it a little bit on that. Looking at other markets, I've identified some good ones that they're just underpriced compared to everything else, and there's good cash flow in those markets. So
yeah, I have my coaching clients are buying in Sarnia, Sudbury, Thunder Bays, those kind of places, and they're just crushing it.
Yeah, there's obviously like great cash flow. Yeah, I've had two guests up from North Bay, Sudbury and Timmins areas, like great cash flow up in those markets. I still think there's some good value to be had down in the Niagara Falls direction, getting into Welland, Fort Erie, and then of course going up towards Owen Sound and things like that. Those are markets where I just think, compared to where they're located, still seem to be an opportunity.
Well, here's the question that I ask people, and some people have been able to give me good answers and some people have not. And this isn't a concern, this is just a question I ask, is of those markets, is it underlying economic fundamentals that are driving it, or is it just people being priced out of Toronto and speculators moving their money further out of the GTA?
I think it's the latter. It's people wanting to see their dollar go further, and that's why they choose those markets.
But one's a little bit more sustainable than the other. Now,
one
and
certainly
I've seen that, like for example, go back to Alberta. I've seen markets that had, Grand Prairies, Peace Rivers, those markets where it was speculators and they were driving up the prices on things, and it didn't have the big enough economic base to sustain a downturn at the same time. So just be mindful. But the good news is, if you're buying it at good enough prices and the rents are there and you got the cash flow, you can absorb any ups and downs. Right.
If you've got a good margin of cash flow, right? So, I mean, you're used to obviously investing in, so I wouldn't call it a one-trick pony, but it's heavily reliant on oil and gas, energy, as you said. So I look at some of these other markets and I think if I can get there early enough with a good enough spread, these have been long, slow, boring markets. Boring is okay. I can buy into the boring part as long as there's cash flow. That's okay to me. Like London, I loved. I was spoiled in London because it's so economically diverse, has everything: education, healthcare, multiple corporate head offices, construction, agriculture, all surrounding it. It had to be self-sustaining because it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's just on the 401, but it's not really near anything. So whereas you look at cities like Burlington, it relies as a bedroom on community to Toronto. And a lot of people are commuting one direction or another. So I loved that. And I think, Toronto's a very diverse economic hub. It will rebound. But I think, as you've said, it's just been so inflated for so long that I feel there needs to be at least some sort of a correction. Not a crystal ball. I don't have one, but that's just my feeling. And without cash flow, I'm not there.
My crystal ball broke about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So all I do is I just share. I share what I've seen through my lenses, and that's it. And some other people may have completely different lenses, and that's okay. I'm totally fine either way, right?
Well, we'll all be wrong at one point if we're speculating, right? So the only thing we can do is invest on fundamentals, and fundamentals mean we have to have good, strong cash flow. Because to speculate on your market going up and up, you don't know. I don't know. None of us know. Like anyone who says they know, like you said, they're speculating, and there's just there's no point.
Awesome.
Changing gears. So did I hear that people call you the JV Jedi? Is that right? Or do I have that slightly off?
Well, interesting. Good mutual friend of ours, Erwin Zito, coined that name for me a little while ago, quite a while ago now, probably a better part of a decade. And it was, it stuck for a long time. And interesting to note is I'm actually trying to rebrand myself a little bit away from that because maybe I've been typecast a little bit into, some people just think that all Russell, is joint ventures, where I have a lot more to offer and a lot more depth than just understanding how to do a joint venture. Now, don't get me wrong, raising capital is the biggest obstacle people will face, and I have resources coming out the wazoo to help people overcome the biggest obstacle, and that's where you find the capital. But I've been rebranding myself and coming at it from a different, is I have a lot more to offer than just joint ventures. And it's almost like, I'm becoming my own leading man in state as opposed to the supporting actor. And let me share a story with you here for a second. And so we have our own fears and insecurities, and we have our own, tall poppy syndrome, was stepping up. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been teaching it for better part of 17 years. I've delivered over 900 public presentations on this topic of real estate. I've been now venturing down into the States, and some people have been, some avenues have been opened up for me doing some training and teaching into the States. And I sat there and I go, oh my goodness, what will they learn from me? I'm just a simple farm boy from Saskatchewan. I don't know what I can teach these guys. This is the US, right? These people, they have all these big groups down there. And so I've been on a couple podcasts and a few things down there. And I taught just fundamentals, like the simplest things that literally I learned 17 years ago, like simplest things. And some of the hosts and the people they go, oh my goodness, that's revolutionary. Where have you been hiding all these years? And I'm just in there I go, sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and it's our own insecurities that will stop us from keep moving forward. And I think we all have something to share with others. And I've been doing it for 20 years, like I said, and I'm got a bigger audience that I need to tap into. And you know what? I'm willing to do the work. So
that's awesome. So as far as your portfolio right now, are you primarily with joint ventures, or is it a mix of stuff you've done on your own and joint venture stuff as well?
Both.
So it's just a mix of everything.
The simplest strategy for my portfolio is I'm repositioning my old into new. And the other strategies I'm doing is I'm actually, maybe in my age group that I'm now at, I'm actually have an executionable, a plan that I'm paying off all my mortgages. And I actually have within 5 to 10 years, I want to be free and clear of all my mortgages and all my properties. And it's just, for some of you, this is one of the most contentious thing that people will argue with me and say, well, why would you pay off all your mortgages? I go, when you get to be my age, we'll have a different conversation. I know you're 30, and that's okay. You're in acquisition mode. By all means, lever, buy, acquire. There comes a time when you have to pay all that money back. Okay. And the difference between somebody who has a free and clear portfolio and somebody who's levered up to 90% is one sleeps a little better at night.
Absolutely. Having that lower loan to value, and I know like leverage is obviously the name of the game when you're growing, but having that buffer helps you absorb and not go underwater. And also usually if you're in that situation, your rents are such that your cash flow is a bit better as well.
Absolutely. And then you can actually start enjoying the life. So I'm in a cycle right now where I'm working probably harder than I ever have. Mm-hmm. If any of you follow me on Instagram, you know what time I get up in the morning, because I post it every day on my stories. 5 days a week. I actually give you guys a break on the weekends when I get up. But I'm working harder than I ever have. And I'm enjoying my work more than ever. I enjoy the properties that I'm buying. I enjoy the businesses that I'm looking to do. Like a business partner and I were looking to maybe put together a property management company, adding some additional services. And what I'm really enjoying the most is in the business of helping others, because I've been blessed with all this experience, all these mentors, all this wisdom that I've had over all these years, that it would be a shame if I did not share that with the next generation of people that are coming into real estate, because there is a lot, there's lots of information. I think there's not a lot of true wisdom and leadership that is being provided out there. And I think there's an entire new generation that needs that leadership. And that's like what I want to do.
Leadership in this field?
And within the context of real estate, yes.
Yeah. I think you've probably seen it too, but, something about I like how things have changed, right? It's a much more giving environment. Back when I started, it was all run to the back of the room and sign up for and then sign up. And then, I never liked that much. No judgment. That just didn't really, wasn't really something that I loved. And now I feel like there's just, like you said, there's this like the resources available now. People just kind of giving away what they have, like all the people who come on to this podcast, such as yourself, that are just giving it away, which is amazing. Truly, to somebody that's willing to do the work and actually consume it and implement it, it's all laid out. It's laid out for us.
I sit there and I chuckle quite often at people. Like I just launched my podcast. It's been 2 months. Okay. And the amount of work that it takes. And everybody's going, oh, yes, you're just in the land of podcast and riches. No, there's a lot of time and effort. Like I truly was 11 o'clock last night. I was working on EQ curves. And I'm sitting there going, is this the best use of my time when I should be probably sleeping? Yeah. But it's just another way of giving back and helping. And I think that the name of the game is distribution of your message. Okay. You can have all the greatest ideas and you can have all the wisdom, you can have all the experience. If you don't distribute your message to a wide enough audience, you're the best kept secret that nobody knows about. Yeah. Right. And I know a lot of investors that have been around as long as I have in 20 plus years. And a lot of them are coming to me for some coaching as well as how do I now share my message? I've been so private and one-on-ones. Yeah. How do I turn a video camera on? How do I do a recording? How do I do a Facebook Live? And I'm actually sharing a lot of those strategies with real estate investors on how to distribute your message to no longer be the best kept secret around.
That was me before I really never started sharing anything, completely hid 100% until pretty much the end of 2018. Didn't share with anybody, and then got into the podcast about 4 months after getting onto Instagram. Yep. But it's definitely something. If you want to grow and build your network and get around like-minded people, you got to get out there, I think.
Well, and you just have to understand what your lane is too. Like eventually there comes a time, and I'm very blessed that I have an amazing business partner that is my number one property source, but he's also a very detailed operations guy that takes care of a lot of that I can go out on these podcasts and presentations and create education programs and inspire people to keep moving forward. But I got an amazing operations person that I can lean on to help out with that. And I also have an amazing outsourced team with my accountants and my property managers. I have to outsource almost all those tasks so I can actually free up my time to be able to do podcasting and videos and Facebook Lives and webinars and all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. Do you have a lot of your own employees that work for your organization, or are they outsourced, as you said, to separate companies?
Everybody's outsourced at this time. I'm looking to bring a few more in-house. I hired my 17-year-old daughter this year to take care of my Instagram game and up that. And she's nice. Doing the graphic images and posting things. And I'm just like, holy moly. She does it all on her phone and just whips by me at lightning speed. And she's telling me what to do. And, Russell, we can't do that. You can't post that story there. So we're having lots of fun. We're having lots of fun.
It's good to have help with that stuff. Yep. That's one of my hurdles. That's I want to bring on more help for that kind of thing. Yep. Just somebody to basically be my shadow and follow me around and help me with everything all the time.
Well, interesting to note. That's one of the biggest things that I do a lot of my coaching with is getting a lot of my clients and students to how to scale this, how to add less of you to the process, but still grow and scale your business.
Because there's certain things I know where I'm the highest value add, right? Like dealing with finding deals, coaching people, interviewing people, doing this kind of stuff. I think those are my highest value adds. And then the other stuff, there's things that I'm good at, but I shouldn't be doing and there's things that I'm bad at and I shouldn't be doing. So there's a bunch of stuff I have to put into a category of get somebody else to do that for me.
Fun story. I was just working with one of my clients last week and we were I was asking him the question is, I'm just not seeing the fire anymore. Like, what is your next summit? What do you want to take on next? Because he accomplished this major hurdle and he did it. Then he took some time off. Awesome. And I'm going, what's next? Then he goes, well, you know what? I still want to keep acquiring properties. Well, I agree, but what's stopping you? And the two things that are stopping him is renovation team and his property management system are the two things that are stopping him from adding more properties to his portfolio. I said, let's just put this into context. The last property that you bought it under market value. By the time he does the BRRRR and fixes it up, it's probably about $100,000 equity to him. I said, how many hours did that take you to do? About 15. I go, so you made $100,000 in 15 hours of work. What's stopping you now from getting there? He goes, okay, I got it. Like it was something like $6,000 an hour. I'd have to get my calculator out here to do the math. I said, so that is the cost of you doing your own renovations and your own property management is you're sacrificing a $6,600 an hour task. And he goes, point taken. So then we're now in the process of putting the feelers out and hiring the contractors, hiring the people, nobody will do it as good as he will, but he doesn't have to do it. Right.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. One of the biggest challenges is that I'm very particular, and we'll have to loosen the grip a little bit. But I think everybody goes through that at some point, and you proceed. But not to get distracted here, I did want to just go through like one quick case study, if we could. What's a good deal you've done recently? If it's a burr, or if it's even just a buy and hold, or a flip, or something you would comes to your mind real easily that you wouldn't mind sharing.
Well, one of the things that I like to do is I invest in brand new construction suited properties. Okay. So the last ones we would have bought were $460,000.
So that's a suited unit.
That's completed. That includes all landscaping, all taxes, all fencing, all window roller shades. That includes everything done. Okay.
And what's that rent for?
It rents for the up and down together plus utility about $3,350.
Okay. And just figure like a 3% vacancy rate out there.
Well, it hasn't been vacant so far, but it will. We factor in like 3 or 4. We do factor in. But here's the cool thing: is it's under warranty. Any maintenance issues typically goes to the builder. After 1 year, the builder will walk through and they'll touch up every paint and they'll fix everything. It's under warranty. And the really cool thing when you do new construction, especially if you do it from the build phase, is you can make some small changes that you can't do if you were doing like a burr. Here's an example. We chose to it's a suited house with a detached garage. We chose to take the detached garage and move it a little bit closer to the house, okay? Which made a little bit less yard for the tenants to have to maintain. But the most important thing was it made a longer apron for parking.
Okay.
So now we can have 2 cars in the garage, 2 cars on the apron, and 2 cars in front. We now have parking for 6. Right? Nice. And because we did that on the design phase, we now added 2 more parking spots as opposed to what we could get before. Okay. Another thing is, we'll do like composite decking, aluminum railing. We'll do those kind of things because they have no maintenance. Right. And the less maintenance issues I have, the happier I sleep with things like that.
Yeah, I agree with you there 100%.
So we actually design it up front to do that. And just small things like we'll put in on-demand hot water as opposed to a tank, right? Because then you can shrink your utility room and you can actually put more square footage into your suite.
Yeah, that is the reason to do that too. Some people think it's for efficiency. The efficiency is not really that much more, but the room,
it's actually you can shrink your utility room to get more rental space.
Absolutely. What were your taxes be there?
Taxes on those, they're roughly around $300. Maybe, 208. I think it was 208, $208 a month.
Okay. And then insurance on something like that, about $1,500?
Yeah, insurance is ridiculous of late, but it's 18. I think it's $1,800 per property.
Yeah, I just got smacked with a really ugly renewal. Do you pay anything what do you budget for maintenance on something like that? Like 5%?
We usually budget like 3 to 5, give or take.
Yeah. And then management, are you paying anything for management or is that internal?
We'll pay 9%.
9%. And then utilities, you're not paying anything, I'm guessing?
That's utilities. So we add utilities to the rent and then we actually make a little bit of money. We make about $150 a month off the utilities, give or take.
Okay. So $3,350 included utilities?
Including utilities.
Okay. So what were your utilities
are averaging about $300 a month.
Landscaping, do you pay for that or do they handle it?
Tenant handles it. In theory, the tenant should handle it. At the same time, if they don't, we will have the conversation with them. If we have to do it for them, we'll potentially bill it back to them.
Okay. So we'll assume that they do it. If you were to buy that, 20% down payment, 30-year amortization, what interest rates are you getting right now? Around 2%?
Yeah, last one we got was 2.19.
So 2.2, call it. So that unit there you just described would be about a $685 a month cash flow.
Yeah, so I factor in they're about $450 when we bought it at the time. Interest rates have changed. Now here's the good news: is my joint venture partner financed it with a line of credit. So his entire
Okay.
line of credit is also covered too. 100% finance, and we still have a positive cash flow property.
So if you're doing that joint venture deal, your partner brings in the cash, goes on the mortgage, and you just make sure that they cover their line of credit payment, they cover the mortgage, and then where does the rest of the money just go into an account to build up?
Yep. And then what we do is at the end of each year, we just make decisions on what we're going to do if there's surplus cash flow.
Okay. Do you have an amount of money that you strive to have in every account, just to cover what ifs and things that come up?
Yeah, we've increased that number, and usually it's anywhere between right now I think we increased it. It's 10 grand typically per
10 grand,
property.
yeah.
And then what we do at the end of the year is whatever's above 10 grand, we have the availability to split that if we want to.
Okay.
Right. Or if it's below 10, then we have to contribute.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. For me, like you talk about sleeping at night, I like to have a huge buffer in them just in case, because you never know when you get a call about a roof or whatever, or a sewer that you got to dig up, sanitary connection. So I probably am overkill, but I just prefer liquidity just because it helps me sleep better.
Yep.
But okay, so that was cool. I just wanted to show like a little bit of a case study to give people an idea of what you're seeing in Edmonton, and so that deal would work right now. You could do something like that right now.
I'm actually looking at 6 of them in a row.
Okay.
On one block. And the really interesting model that I really like is actually a garage suite model, which essentially it's the same house, but it's the suite is above the garage in the back, and you can actually get a 2-bedroom, really nice suite, 2-bedroom above the garage in the back. It's a little bit more money, but you get significantly more rent.
Okay, so when you separate it, people will pay more.
People pay more. You get the tenant on the house. They like it because they have the whole house to themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then when Airbnb was popular or more popular, you could actually short-term rent the garage suites as well.
Wow, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so it was
cool
completely detached.
It's cool to hear it's still growing out there. I wasn't sure that was happening. So I hope it keeps going for you.
When I say growth,
marginally,
we're splitting hairs here, and I don't have a lot to split. So.
Yeah. For those who are listening and not watching, Russell's holding up his fingers, a very very small growth. But hey, that's better than shrinking. So Russell, it's been awesome. Any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave people with who are trying to take it to the next level? We got a lot of investors that have established themselves. They've got a few rental properties, and I'm sure they're trying to grow more. What would you say to them to help them take it to the next level?
Well, I'm going to end off with the following. It's going to be a little bit of a story and a little bit of inspiration. Now, for those of you who are listening to the podcast, you will not see that I'm wearing a shirt that says Aloha on it. And Aloha is, one of my favorite places to go to is Hawaii. And that's where my wife and I were married. We were married in Maui on the beach there. And the analogy I'm going to share with everybody of a little inspiration is I call it the surfer analogy. So number one is if you wanted to learn how to surf, the first thing you need to do is you need to get your board in the water. You really do. You can't stand on the sideline and start surfing. You actually have to get in the water. You have to get in there and you have to paddle out into the surf. Now, the next thing you have to do, which is the most important step, is that you actually have to point your surfboard to where you want to go, your goal, right? Where you want to get to. And then you gotta, when you start looking over your shoulder and you start seeing the waves coming and the waves start forming, when a wave starts coming, you need to start kicking like heck. You need to kick and paddle and paddle and paddle. You need to take action. You need to execute against your plan. And once you get up to a velocity, then you can start riding that wave towards your goal and you're on your surfboard. So here's the inspiration I'm going to share with everybody. Is if you're on the sidelines right now and your board isn't even in the water, you might want to start at least getting the board into the water, pointing it to the direction that you want to go. But the most important thing is you need to kick like heck when you catch the wave, and you will enjoy all the benefits if you ride that wave right to the shore. So, and then then the last thing I want to share is how I end off a lot of my conversations is always make people feel inspired, encouraged, and always come from a place of love when you are doing every encounter with another human being.
That's really good wisdom right now, especially. when the world is very crazy these days. So
well, that's how I judge at the end of the day if I actually made a difference. Is did I inspire somebody? Did I encourage somebody? And did I always come from a place of love? And that's how I will judge my day at the end of the day.
Yeah, well put. Well put. Okay, so if people wanted to reach out to you or follow you, where should we send them?
The easiest place would be just russellwestcott.com. Everything, I think all my social media channels, everything is just my name. The hub of everything is the main website. And if we had more time, I could share a fun story about a website. But I think everybody needs to have a good digital presence now more than ever. If you don't have either a good website or you don't have a good social media presence, you're going to be left in the dust with things. So by all means, if you want to, this may sound like a flex or I'm tooting my own horn, I probably have one of the best websites out there. If you wanted to go check it out about what it's about, it took a lot of time. Now, I never saw the backside of a website until about 3 years ago. So I had no idea even what a website and how to create one. And I had a mentor of mine. I was sitting with a mentor of mine. I was sitting there going, I was, almost like bragging a bit about here's what I've done and here's what I've done. And I've done that all without a website. And my mentor, my coach said, he goes, yeah, just imagine what you would have done if you had one. Point taken. So then I learned how to do it. And I'm very proud of that home base and that website. And I would say it's probably one of the best that you will see in this space within the Canadian real estate investors.
Well, I'm going to have to go check that out. Yeah. Okay. I'll put all that in the show notes and make sure people have access to them. I'll probably put your social handles in there too, just in case they want to follow. That's really great. I really appreciate it. Russell, thanks so much. And I'm glad we finally met. So now we can stay in touch.
Yeah. Anytime, brother.
Sounds great. Thanks again. And we'll talk to you soon, Russell.
Okay. Bye for now, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Just a friendly reminder that the kindest thing that you can do if you're enjoying this content is to share it with somebody that you think it could help. I don't have a big marketing budget for this podcast. Everything is word of mouth. So your sharing this content means everything. Thank you again. I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.